thanks. This is awkward. I feel like someone's always going to be looking at my ass, so maybe I'll just stand this way most of the time. So I have a theory that the more self-worth and self-value we have, the happier we are. The happier we are, I feel like we treat people with more respect and more kindness. And I think the world can all use a little bit more of that. So how do we get more self-worth and self-value? I feel it all starts with our health. That's the foundation of everything. And to prove my theory, I want to share a little bit of my story with you. So when I was 26 years old, I was living in Philadelphia. And, woo, Philly, I don't live there anymore, but I was living in Philadelphia, and I was going through a really difficult time in my life. I was looking intensely for my purpose. I was looking for my passion, my sense of meaning, and what the hell I'm on this earth for. And I couldn't find it. I was so frustrated. One thing was very certain, though. I was, and still am, a runner. I began to be a runner. I started my relationship with running when I was 16 years old to deal with the news of my dad going through a pretty severe gambling addiction, which was shocking and heartbreaking to me because my dad was my hero and my best friend and my biggest fan. That wasn't my dad's first introduction with addiction. He went through drug and alcohol recovery when I was a little kid. I've never seen my dad drink or do drugs, but for years my mom did. So when the gambling surfaced for her, she wasn't going through it again, and she kicked my dad out of the house. I was pissed off, 16. You know, I had all this negative emotional energy inside of me, so I started running. Running taught me two very important lessons at that time in my life. The first one is that we're all going to be on some really shitty roads in life. I think I can swear here, right? We're going to be on some really shitty roads in life, and we've got choices to make when we do that. We can either persevere up the hill, or we can dig deep into our pockets and find one of the excuses we all carry around and go back, or go left, or go right. It also taught me that you have to take things one step at a time. You can't go out and run 10 miles and do number 1 and number 10. That's 2 miles. You have to do all of the work in between to get to where you want to go. So fast forward back to me being 26 in Philly, feeling again completely lost and not knowing what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. And like I did every day at 5:30 in the morning, I was running. And there was a homeless shelter that was not even a half mile away from my apartment that I had ran by literally every single day, and I had to walk by it to get to work. And I didn't think twice about the people that I saw outside that shelter. I frankly walked on the other side of the street. But something special happened in May of 2007, and these group of guys hanging outside started to wave at me, and I started to wave back. And pretty soon we had this really fun, quick-witted, sarcastic rapport happening each morning. I joke, but it's absolutely true, that these guys would ask me if all I do is run all day, and I'd ask them if all they do is stand there all day. And it was so easy for me to talk to them like that because they reminded me so much of my dad. So thankfully I was smart enough at that point to know that running doesn't discriminate. Doesn't matter if you're white, black, rich, poor. I didn't think it mattered if you were homeless or not. Running made me feel so strong and so alive, like I could do anything. And I thought, why can't it make these guys feel like that? Why am I just running by them and leaving them there? I'm going to start a running club. So I call up the shelter and ask to talk to the director. And I tell him my name and that I live close by and I'd like to start a running club for people living in the shelter. And he tried to think of the nicest way to tell me that homeless people don't run. And I said, well, if you could just ask them, I'll take care of everything else. I'll be there 3 days a week. I'll bring shoes and clothes and get everything organized. And he told me not to get my hopes up, but that he would ask them. Week and a half later, I get an email from this gentleman with the names of 9 guys and their shoe sizes, asking me what's next. So I'm super excited. I sent an email to everybody I possibly have an email address for. I asked for shoes and clothes. If you don't have those things, I'll take your money. And everybody sent in all these dozens of shoes arrives at my apartment. I remember looking at these shoes and thinking, man, these are old. And it's great that everybody was, so supportive and sending in stuff to help, but these shoes were old and dirty and worn out. And I looked down at my shoes, and they're nice and new and shiny, and I thought, why is it okay if I give it to these guys and tell them they have to run in these because they're homeless, that this should be good enough? Everybody was going to get a new pair of shoes. So we got new shoes for all of these guys. I go up to the shelter. They haven't met me yet. It's the end of June. I go into this chapel. I introduce myself. I immediately talk about my relationship with my dad. I talk about my relationship with running. and everybody got a new pair of shoes, and they also got new clothes that night. But the most important thing we did was sign a piece of paper that said, if you want to be a part of the Sunday Breakfast Rescue Mission Running Club, our name is a little cooler today, that you have to sign this piece of paper that says you are going to show up 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, at 6 a.m., and you're going to be on time. You're going to come with a positive attitude. You're going to respect and support your teammates. You know, I didn't look at these guys and say, you're homeless, I get it. You probably can't make it 3 days a week, but if you can show up once or twice, I would appreciate that. And for goodness sakes, you live in a shelter, you're probably not going to be on time, but just try not to be too late, okay? I looked at these guys with absolute perfection and expected nothing less than 100% commitment. And I swear to you, you could feel they were almost waiting for someone to look at them like that. So they smile at me, they're smiling at each other. We all signed that piece of paper that night, and we had our first run on July 3rd of 2007. I had really good media contacts in Philly, and I wanted to get the word out because I had recently just taken this big new job where I asked for 5 weeks if I could get this running club, which was all it was ever supposed to be, stabilized with enough people involved that it would work without me. The media had the same reaction that the director did. Homeless people don't run. There's no way this is happening. When I say the word homeless, most people in this room, and it's okay because I used to think it too, think of somebody who's lazy, doesn't want to work, definitely doesn't want to work hard. Don't they drink all day? Aren't they dangerous? Don't they push shopping carts around? And aren't you just going to make them hungrier by making them run? Those were the reactions that I was getting. And when I say the word runner, if you know anybody who's a runner, you probably think of somebody who's motivated, self-disciplined, focused, reliable, type A, and a little anal. These two words did not go together. No one can understand how somebody who's homeless could be a runner. It doesn't make sense. So the media shows up and they go talk to all the guys and have to understand the burning question, or the burning answer to their question, why they're doing this. And they get the most obvious answers, like anybody in this room would give. I wanted to see if I was going to be any good at this. I wanted to get healthy. I wanted to meet new people, and I thought this might be fun. You could almost feel the humanity seep into these reporters as they start to write about this unlikely group of runners leaving from the corner of 13th and Vine in Philadelphia every day. All these people start calling and want to come run with us, and all of a sudden there's 20 people out there each morning, the most diverse group of people you would ever see, who never, frankly, should have been at the same place at the same time on purpose. Our upbringings were different, our socioeconomic statuses, our religions, race, everything. Jail time, drug use, you name it. But now we had one thing in common. We were all runners, and you couldn't tell anything about any one of us besides who was the fastest. For a while, it was me, but it's not anymore. And over those next 3 weeks, there was 2 powerful yet so simple observations that happened that helped me realize this was so much bigger than a running club. The first one was that these guys were showing up every single day, and they were on time. I wasn't threatening them. I had nothing to threaten them with. If I said, if you don't show up today, I'm going to take away your food, or I'm going to take away your shelter. 2 basic human needs, of course, but I didn't have those things to threaten them with. They were coming out because they wanted to be there. That's a very important thing about change to remember. It has to be voluntary, and I learned that very much the hard way through my dad, that you cannot force anybody to change because you want them to, especially a grown man. The second observation was what would happen when I would track their miles on this big white poster board. You know, I tried to desperately draw straight lines in it. I had their names on the left and the numbers at the top to represent the miles that we ran cumulatively from the days before. At the end of each run, I'd take this marker next to each one of their names, Mike, Craig, Darren, everyone. And these guys would just hover behind my shoulders to watch me give them credit for the work that they did, the big smile on their face. That was my moment when I realized how much in common I have with these guys and how much in common I have with every single person in this room. Everybody wants to be noticed, appreciated, valued, cared for, and loved. We seek out those emotions. If you don't find them in your jobs, you quit. You find another job. If you don't find them in your friendships, you find new friends. If you don't find them in your intimate relationships, you find a new intimate relationship. And it was so apparent that these guys didn't have that. They didn't have a community of support, and they were liking who they were becoming, and they were liking the people around them. So this question starts to form, what if we can actually change the way that these guys see themselves? What if we can change their identity from someone who might look at themselves as homeless and the stigma that comes along with that, as someone who's undeserving or not capable or status quo, into somebody who is a runner, an athlete, healthy, a teammate, reliable, responsible, a goal setter? If we can do that, can we substantially change the direction of their life? And frankly, is there any other way? If you don't feel good about who you are, if you don't have the self-worth and the self-value, and you're not happy and you don't love yourself, your life isn't going to change. Nothing's going to be different. So on top of that vision, my personal life is starting to get a ridiculous amount of clarity. You know, nothing good came from my dad's addictions for 10 years. It was tears and heartache and frustration and resentment, heartbreak, nothing. There was nothing where it was like, oh, that's why we had to go through all of that garbage. But now, because of my dad is who he is, because of his addictions and his struggles and the discoveries, and because that's how I found running, it's the only reason I gave a shit about these guys. You start to look at what was brewing, and I'm just not that clever to plan all of this. And you start to think, okay, I know what I'm supposed to do here. So I walked away from my job and surrounded myself with really smart people. And we started building and growing and tried to create this bigger mission and vision that could change the direction of people's lives by first getting them healthier, which would create more self-value and more self-worth. Today, Back on My Feet is a $6.5 million organization with 48 full-time staff, operations in 11 different markets. It is not our mission to build a running club within a homeless community. It's to use running as a vehicle to create self-sufficiency and more self-worth and self-value within the homeless community. 99% of our members, after joining Back on My Feet, say they have several good qualities. 67% say they are very satisfied with their health. 68% couldn't be more excited about their future. These are individuals who are living in homeless shelters. 46% of the folks that we work with go on to get employment through our partnerships that we build. And they all talk about their emotional transformation of how they see themselves by becoming a healthier and better version of who they are. So when you're in your breakout sections today and you're talking about challenges and how we can create a healthier world, we have to think about community. We have to think how we bring these programs and create a more sense of community in neighborhoods and areas around this country that need it. People want to feel good. Our members don't want to be homeless, I guarantee you that. They just don't know how not to be. Thank you.